Hello, amigos. Whether you are new to diagnosis, an old pro, or just curious about how to move and live better with PSC, you're in the right place. Welcome to PSC Fit, the podcast dedicated to helping all PSC warriors, where invisible illness meets visible strength. I'm your host, Thomas Fowler, and today I want to talk to you about something that's helped me, I'd say, over the last 12 months more than anything else that I've tried to implement in the past. And some of you may be familiar with it, some of you might not be. And if you're not, I would strongly recommend that you look into it a little bit further. And that is the one thing. So this stems from the book by Gary Keller called The One Thing. And it all comes round to one effectively focusing question. I interpret and I have my own sort of spin on it now. Um, but what I'll do is I'll read you sort of the snippet of the book and stuff and how I interpret I can't talk interpret it and some of the things that I do as my one thing. So, the central framework of the book is a single powerful question designed to help you identify your highest priority. And that question is, what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? So, again, what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Really simple kind of question, right? But if that did stump you, then effectively look at it in a multitude of ways. But what is the one thing that you can do today that costs you very little time, energy, or resource that will make your life easier, even if it's by 1%? So what is that one thing that you could do today that's going to move your needle closer and move you closer to a goal? So, for example, for me, my one thing has been, well, my one thing today was recording this podcast. And I've recorded it primarily because I know that this podcast is going to help you and it's going to help other PSC warriors. Now, there are other days where my one thing is having breakfast or spending a couple of minutes journaling or getting 20 minutes of movement in. It doesn't have to be something earth-shattering. And what it does is once you kind of do that one thing, so let's stick with movement as an example. If my one thing today and say the next 30 days is just 15 to 20 minutes of movement, then that's going to then become a new habit and that's going to compound over time. So then that kind of gets ingrained into you, and then that no longer becomes your one thing because it's now a habit, it's now part of you. So then you can then move on to another thing because again, once you've ingrained it and you're doing it day in, day out, that shows up as success, and then that creates what's called the domino effect. And again, a snippet from the book. So apologies, I had to cut there because my wife came in, she didn't know I was recording. So I'm going to try and get back to where I think I was, but I was kind of just explaining the domino effect, and again the snippet sort of from the book for the domino effect. Success is sequential, not simultaneous. So Keller uses the analogy of dominoes. A single 2-inch domino can topple over another 50% larger than itself by consistently hitting your lead domino, i.e., your one thing. You create a geometric progression of results over time. So again, that's like I said, when you do these things over and over again, they get ingrained in you, they become habits. So it allows you to then focus on something new, i.e., a new one thing. Something in the book as well, it debunks like common myths. I don't know why that's whistled, I guess, there. So yeah, the book identifies several lies that keep us from being productive. Everything matters equally, and it doesn't. And if you follow the Pareto principle, which is the 80-20 rule, um, if you follow that to find like the vital few, I will do another episode on the Pareto principle because if you're not familiar with it, basically 20% of what you do yields 80% of your results. So you might have heard the phrase like, tell me what you do in a day, I'll tell you where you are in a year. But again, if you're not familiar with that, don't stress it because I'll cover that in other episodes. Multitasking is effective. That is a lie because switching tasks costs time and decreases actual quality output. A disciplined life is required, and you really don't need to be like totally disciplined. You just need enough discipline to build a habit. And willpower is on call. I have my own irks with willpower, and yeah, he defines it as willpower is a finite resource that gets depleted throughout the day. So, for example, you can start the day off saying, "Oh, I'm not going to have a piece of cake, or I'm not going to have chocolate or whatever when I get home," and then it comes the end of the day, you're tired, you've had a long day, and all that other good stuff. Willpower is low, you're going to go and get that piece of cake. Cake is nice. I can't eat cake because it just comes straight through me. So if you are able to eat cake and it doesn't have any negative impact, actually go and have a slice. That really contradicts everything I've said, but it's true. And again, of course, I have lost my trail of thought. Um, yeah. So there were a couple of other points in there as well. So he sort of says, follow the path of mastery. So you commit to being the best person at your one thing. So whatever you say you're going to do, go and do it and do it to the best of your ability and be the best person. That doesn't mean you have to compete with someone else. Be the best person for you doing your one thing and live your accountability cycle. Take ownership of your results rather than being a victim of your circumstances. And again, that's something that I talk about quite a lot and quite openly about is control your controllables. So we cannot control the fact that we have this disease, but we can control our mindset. We can control how we react to things. We can't cure this disease, but we can certainly slow the progress down, even if it's marginally, by, eating well, moving well, staying hydrated, keeping a strong mental health and your mindset, good sleep. These are all things that we can control. Yes, they're not easy, but we can certainly control those controllables. So my question to you, and I want you to sort of share below in like the comment section and stuff, or if not, pop me a message over on Instagram at PSCFIT. I want you to tell me, obviously depending on what time of the day you're listening to this, either tell me today what your one thing is, or tomorrow what is going to be your one thing, And then I want you to follow up with that, with the accountability. And I want you to tell me if you did it. And also, as well, if you didn't do it, I want you to tell me. And I want you to tell me why you didn't do it, because that also then gives you feedback that it might not have been your one thing. So, yeah, please share that with me. So there we have it. Thank you so much for listening today, or obviously if you watched me on YouTube. If you have any questions about what I've covered, or if there's a topic that you want me to dive into further, hit me up over on Instagram, which is PSCFIT. As always, that will be in my show notes. And if you could also subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen, or if you're watching on YouTube, I'd be so grateful if you could subscribe if you haven't already, and then please share it with another PSC warrior or a friend or loved one of a PSC warrior. All of the relevant like info from today and my links for all my free resources and stuff like that are in the show notes. I'll catch you next time. Peace.